So on to the real reason that I was supposed to do a video. So God has been dealing with me lately about how much power we give to wrong words and lies. And I'm not gonna sit up here and say I have not fallen victim to lies being spoken over me and word curses, because that's literally what it is. I have had several situations, and unfortunately, the problem was that I came into agreement with those things. I began to believe them and to doubt myself or to doubt God. And part of the lesson that I'm learning this season is to trust God. Like, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable to trust God, because I'm in a season where I've had to do a lot of growing, a lot of maturing, a lot of healing. And I had to like really acknowledge that I was not trusting God because of, trauma, because of things that happened to me in the past, and how I saw God as a result of those things. And how I blamed God for some of those things that happened to me, especially the things that happened to me out of my control, or the things that happened when I obeyed God. I gave God a yes, and it turned out to be a very hurtful, painful experience for me. So I'm gonna share one of those things while I pin my hair. So back when I worked for the Navy, actually, let me back all the way up. The reason that I am a software engineer now is because God used my cousin to tell me, all of the benefits of getting into software engineering. This is back in 2004. I was, at the time, a bio pre-med major, and I had withdrawn from my biology class in the fall because I had straight A's except for in that class. And at the time, I know now because of law school that I didn't know how to study. And I was not keen on the concept of studying in groups because, you get scored from group projects growing up. But anyway, I firmly believe, that was a divine thing, because I've been able to completely change my relationship with money, as well as I've been blessed to be able to do a lot of things. Like, I've been able to travel for work and travel out of the country, live out of the country. I've been able to be a part of organizations that have introduced STEM and coding in particular, programming in particular, to Black girls, like through my time as the tech lead and a volunteer at Black Girls Code. And the crazy thing about it, though, is that from 2011, I think it was 2011 when this happened, 2011 to 2018, I questioned whether I was good enough or whether I was capable, because of a boss that I had who was just targeting me for no reason. Could have been sexism or racism, because he flat out said to me one time, I don't know if women can catch on to programming as easy as men. And that thing stuck with me. He said and did a number of other things as well. And I ended up having to be moved off of his team because his boss saw what he was doing to me. And so this all happened after my dad died. So it was like at a very critical point in my life. And so like I was questioning, and I was already questioning God and asking God, all these different things about like why I was dealing with some of the things I was dealing with. And I'm not gonna sit here and lie and tell you, like, my time working for the Navy, because of, I really firmly believe it was Charleston just the area and the people and the mindsets I was dealing with. Like, it was hard for me because I was so trusting and so naive, and I firmly believe that that was a place where God was he really taught me to hear his voice. In fact, I ended up in Charleston because my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and I had gotten a scholarship from the Department of Defense. I was supposed to go work at the headquarters in San Diego, and I was gonna be doing something I wanted to do, working with doing writing code, doing image processing, the very thing that my master's was in. But I made the choice to go to Charleston instead because my dad was sick. I wanted to be around my family. Lo and behold, it ended up being a blessing for me because I needed to have my transplant. So anyway, after he said that to me, like it stuck with me, and I made up my mind. I was like, I got to get out of here. And of course, I studied, took the LSAT, and moved to New Orleans. And I need to also back up. During that time, I had been begging and begging. Like, they didn't really have a whole lot of coding projects in Charleston because the primary research work took place in San Diego. So I would have little projects here and there from 2008 to 2012, when I finally was able to get a project where I was responsible for maintaining 4 internal apps by myself. And I was able to get like a major fix out during a hurricane after I moved to New Orleans, as a matter of fact. So it took me until 2018, after having to be in another difficult environment, to be able to confront that lie. Like, God reminded me, you were tutoring your classmates in physics. You were helping your classmates with some of the programming work. Why would you think that you can't do this? And I was having to stay up late to study while my baby was a baby. Stephen was an infant. Like, I was having to stay up late to work late, get work done, because the job I had during that time, I was a contractor, and they wanted you to be able to do everybody else's job, and it was a very toxic environment. But God worked it out. I stayed up refreshing on all my coding things so I could do an interview, and God sent me back to Atlanta after I had been trying to get back for 10 years. And all that to say, that was 7 years of my life that I was living below my potential, living below who I was called to be because of a lie, because of something, a word curse, a curse somebody had spoken over me that I chose to come in agreement with. And so there have been several other things that people have spoken over me. And I've had the conscious thought, the consciousness of mind to condemn those things and to cast them down. But I let that thing bother me for 7 years, and to keep me from doing something I loved. And it made me think about just how often we are living below God's plan for us, God's desires for us, because we believed a lie somebody spoke over us. In fact, when I was in Charleston, in New Orleans, I had to deal with racism. So I dealt with every ism when I worked for the Navy. Racism, sexual harassment, ageism, because I was young, sexism, you know, all of the isms. I dealt with it when I worked for the Navy. But I feel like that prepared me to be where I am, to be back in law school, to be preparing to go fight for other people, to call out bias and discrimination and all the things that I believe God is calling me to do with that law degree. There were other things when I was in New Orleans I had to confront. I had to confront, you know, thinking I couldn't do it. Like my first semester of law school, I had to come to terms with the fact that I didn't know how to study. I had to confront the lie that I may not be able to go back to law school in 2017 after my school lost its license to operate. And then again in 2019 when I learned my LSAT scores had been purged because I took the LSAT in 2012. And when I learned that my school didn't leave our application, our records the way they were supposed to. I had to confront lies in New Orleans about my identity and who I was and about what I was seeing. Had a mentor who was a preacher who was being inappropriate, and you know, God was showing me that, and I had to confront that. When the man was lying in my face and trying to make it seem like I was not seeing what I was seeing, he eventually admitted it too. I had to confront other things, you know, thoughts of loneliness and all the other things that I was feeling when I was there. And so I believe that I was supposed to share this because it's a lot of us dealing with a lot of lies. Lies about our identity, about who we are, that we've come into agreement with. Like, this is why you got to be careful what you're listening to, what you're watching, because a lot of those things create confirmation bias, or rather reinforce it. Like, if you've been told you are never going to be anything, you'll never amount to anything, and you're consuming things, whether it's on TV or the radio, or you're engaging in conversations that reinforce that. Or, you know, we live in a social day and age where it's a lot of podcasters who are voicing their opinions on the state of relationships with Black women and men, and say that they're reinforcing the stereotypes, reinforcing these things that are not true. And we have to be careful what we choose to come into agreement with. We have to be careful what we choose to believe and profess over ourselves. And we have to be careful of our relationships, like the people who we give access to our lives that are reinforcing those things. And all I can say is that I even had, last thing before I wrap this up, I had this belief that, you know, I was dealing with a glass ceiling, that I had leveled out. I was at the end of where I was going to be, because I felt like I was fighting all of these obstacles to try to get ahead, to move up and things like that. But I realized that things were coming into alignment with that belief because I was hearing that thought in my head, and I was not speaking up. I was not advocating for myself. I was not, I was basically the one that was creating the redundancy. Like, I was the one that was reinforcing that belief. So before I close this out, What beliefs, what lies are you reinforcing? And what things do you need to work on uprooting? Good night.